You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast. This is the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me at official Sam Little on Instagram. There's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, yes, welcome back to the Maple Footy Podcast. After a little bit, about a week, 2 weeks, really, hiatus. There was no Prem action last weekend, so I decided to use that as a little bit of, we'll take it easy. We'll just watch some games just for the fun of it and not taking notes and whatnot. But yes, we are back. The Prem is back. And first, we're going to start off with a very long Maple start because I've got about, at this point, 2 weeks of information to relay to you. So I'm probably going to rapid fire a good amount of this stuff. And just because it all built up over the 2 weeks. And yeah, we'll go from there. So firstly, Liam Fraser has gone to Crowley Town for a 6-month deal. I think it could be a good move for him. I don't know why Dallas didn't keep a hold of him. But Crowley is struggling relegation right now in their league. I believe they're the second or third tier of England. I didn't write that in my note. It was this, I want to say it was the third tier because I could have sworn I saw Wrexham in there. So we'll see. Then the last episode I had said Malik Olawale Belawu was leaving Forge for Chesterfield. That deal did actually fall through at the 11th hour kind of thing. Nothing to do with Forge. I believe it was to do with potentially Chesterfield. That's the reports I was seeing. So it looks like he will be staying with Forge for the time being, at least, as they had beforehand triggered his option for this season. Hijabrapor has also stayed with Forge, as you will probably have known if you had watched Forge's 2 games in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And then Luca Petrasso, formerly of TFC, has been training with Montreal. No, I have not yet seen official confirmation that he has been signed with them, but he has been training with them. Tristan Borges has been nominated for the Golden Horseshoe Athlete of the Year. It's an award that celebrates athletes in the Hamilton and Burlington area. So congratulations, Tristan Borges. He had a great year, and that's definitely well deserved. Liam Miller Hive, we rise once again. Liam Miller, back training-ish. He's back on grass. It looks like doing very, very, very light training post-ACL injury. It's just good to see him back on the grass. Obviously, he won't be back in time for the season unless he miraculously is. But yeah, it looks like at least on the right track, on the road to recovery. So big congrats to Liam Miller. If you've been listening to me, you know how big of a fan I am of his. Alphonso Davies, once again, is staying with Bayern Munich. He signed a new deal with them. So I'm happy about that, honestly. I'm good with him staying at Bayern Munich. I think he's got it made there. They're a very good club. And why not, I mean, Real Madrid is obviously very tempting, but Bayern is also no slouch. So, yeah, definitely very happy with that. CPL is starting on April 5th. So that's the first day of all matches for CPL. All 4 games will be played on that day. I believe at the same time, too, is what I saw. So it'll be like a great way to reel in the new season, the 7th season of the CPL, which is great. Speaking of CPL, Cavalry and Forge have both started their seasons. Pretty stop-start nature, which kind of sucks. But yeah, they both played in their first round of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Forge lost on aggregate 5-0 against Monterrey. I may sound crazy here. I don't think Forge was played off the pitch in either match. I think they were better actually in the second leg than they were in the first leg, which is funny because they actually lost by a greater deficit in the second leg. But yeah, the first leg in Hamilton, I thought the game kind of got away from him in the second half, but in that first half, I thought it was very back and forth. And then in the second leg, once again, I thought it was pretty back and forth. Forge could have had a couple of goals there. Borges, of course, hit the bar. A couple of chances don't go their way. That's, Monterrey ends up making them pay, right? Monterrey scores those chances, Forge doesn't. That's kind of what it came down to, I found. So 5-0 is definitely not anything to write home about, but I really don't think it was like a 5-0 over 2 legs as well. A 5-0 over 2 legs where it's like, oh my goodness, hopeless, I think there's a lot of hope for this season for Forge. A lot of good signings made, so we'll see kind of how the season plays out. Cavalry, on the other hand, did win their first leg against Pumas, where Santiago Lopez scored for Pumas, the young U20 for Canada. So that was a funny little moment there. He gets his first goal for Pumas against a Canadian side. Funny how life works, I guess. But Cavalry end up winning the first leg. In the second leg, they do fall short. They also go out. Obviously, hard to give Cavalry praise, but definitely it was a historic moment because they're the first CPL team to win in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So massive, I would say. That's absolutely massive. And regardless of how the second leg went, that is still a piece of history that I'm sure that everyone at that club will be extremely proud of, and they definitely should be. Tajon Buchanan and Ishmael Kone have both finalized moves. Obviously, this was a couple weeks ago, and they have both picked up some minutes with their clubs. Buchanan with Villarreal and Kone with Stade Rennes. So hoping that they both can kick on. I know Buchanan has a buy option in his deal. I'm pretty sure Kone does as well. So we could actually see them both on the move again in the summer if they do impress. Jamie Knight-Labelle was given the Player of the Month for the Crew, so that's kind of massive, I would say. Nothing more there. But yeah, and then Forge as well. I meant to say this when I was talking about Forge. Forge has now played at all 3 stadiums in Mexico that will host a World Cup match, which I thought was pretty cool and wanted to share. Tyrion Campbell, formerly of Forge, has gone to Vancouver in the CPL. I'm actually a very big fan of Tyrion Campbell. Do wish Forge had kind of kept a hold of him, but with Brian Wright coming in, it was always going to be tough to kind of keep 2 starting strikers. So one had to go, and Tyrion Campbell was out of contract, so naturally it does make sense. I wish him all the best. I'm a massive fan of his. All 3 Canadian MLS teams have released their kits as well. Their new home kits, each of them. TFC, the big news is they've gone back to red. Kind of crazy that we saw them not in red for like a little bit there. I don't know whose idea that was to make them gray, but at least they're red now. And their away kit that they're using again this year, by the way, is so good. That them and Vancouver's actually, I adore Vancouver's away kit. It's a beautiful kit. Get me a Vancouver kit with Atakubi's name on the back. Absolutely, I'd wear that until it was threads. That is such a beautiful kit. But yeah, all of them. So if you want, go buy those kits, you kit collectors. I myself am a bit of a kit collector, so don't be surprised if you see me in one of the kits. And then finally, player-wise, Theo Bair grabbed an assist on Friday. He was given the start for Auxerre and didn't disappoint. I thought he had a solid game. Obviously, we would have loved to have seen him get a goal, but the next best thing is an assist. So that's his first assist of the season to go with his 1 goal this season. Minutes have been few and far between for him. Starts have been even fewer and farer between, but it's good that he kind of took that chance. Looked like he impressed, so maybe this could be the first start of a couple to come. If not, it'll be back to just pity minutes, it seems. I do wish he was getting more minutes. I think he's a quality striker. And finally, more to wrap up the Maple start that's gone on for a little while. The Canadian Premier League, pending conditions yet to be met, will expand to British Columbia and Ontario for the 2026 season, as reported by Josh Healy of Wanderers Notebook. And I found this tweet through True North Foot, and that's over on Twitter, X, whatever you would like to call it. But yeah, so I found that news through them. And while the cities have yet to be confirmed, Kelowna of BC and Windsor of Ontario are the front runners for the potential expansion teams. The Canadian Premier League is also discussing the possibility of creating Eastern and Western conferences for the 2026 season, and that also is according to Josh Healy of Wanderers Notebook, which I also found through True North Foot. So go give those guys a follow. They're great if you want to keep up on your Canadian news. They're phenomenal. But yeah, I'm a fan of expansion. I don't think I'm a fan of conference. That could just be me being like a football fan. I'm like, no, just like, I don't know. That's my opinion. That wasn't much of an opinion. Me going, I don't know. I would prefer if they kept it not conference, but if they do a conference, I would understand it. But I would like to see them just work on expanding the league. I think like 2 more teams is great, and then I think you have to keep expanding after that. That's my opinion. I've been very vocal about that on Maple Footy. So yeah, definitely keep expanding, and then maybe think of conferences, preferably no conferences. But yeah, I'd wait. But yeah, that kind of concludes the Maple start, which was a little bit of time. So thank you. I had a lot of notes taken throughout a couple of weeks there. And if you came here for the Prem action, guess what? It's coming up right now. If you need a refresher, it starts with match of the weekend, then biggest winners of the weekend, biggest underperformers, best performance, moment of the weekend, relegation zone, European places, title race. What do you say? Let's get into it? Let's get into it, baby. All right, so let's start with match of the weekend. And honestly, there wasn't like many matches that I would say you have to go out of your way to watch this weekend. I thought it was a pretty standard-ish weekend for the Prem, in my opinion, at least. Like, there wasn't really a match that stood out to me from like a quality aspect, so I'm really just gonna list off a couple that like at least had something a little bit interesting happen in them. So firstly, Manchester City. If you didn't see, well, Marmoush got his first hat trick for City in 14 minutes. They've just gone and got themselves another Haaland, haven't they? Like, they've done it again. They have done it again. Yeah, I mean, Newcastle's a quality team, and they've been quality this entire season. But Manchester City, I mean, people were counting them out. But Manchester City still have that quality. I still think that they're in need of a rebuild, which is why I think they brought in so many young guys in the January transfer window. I think they've kind of seen that and realized that they're going to need to do that. So, respect. They've just gone and done it again. But yeah, I don't think many people saw like a 4-0 like clobbering before this game had kicked off, especially with a hat trick inside 14 minutes. Like, within that 14 minutes, the game was just over. How do you beat that, you know? Like, from 19 to 33, Marmoush starts his hat trick and then finishes his hat trick. As Newcastle, how do you even compete with that? Like, I mean, I guess there's hope of like, well, maybe we can do the same, but no, it's not ideal for Newcastle. I mean, I don't think this is like an end-all be-all result for them. It puts them at 7th, but still well within the European race, I would say. They're not out of it at all. Manchester City just continues to climb the league at this point. They're 3 points off of 3rd now, in 4th at the moment, and a point ahead of both Bournemouth and Chelsea, 3 points ahead of Newcastle, as I mentioned. Yeah, like, it's they're just not going anywhere. You know what I mean? But yeah, so like, not the greatest of games, but I mean, if you want to see something like pretty cool, you can see a hat trick in 14 minutes. Another game that was, once again, not the greatest, but at least had some talking points, I would say, would be Everton and Crystal Palace. At least it was decently back and forth. You know, Everton scores late in the second, and then Crystal Palace scores early in the first. Ben Chilwell, by the way, I'm a big Ben Chilwell fan. He made his Premier League debut for Crystal Palace after completing a move with them on loan. So hope he does well. He was an absolute professional for Chelsea. Never said a word, was basically publicly humiliated by his coach, and never said a word. He still hasn't. Just wants to go out and play. And you can't ask for more. I know people have varying opinions on Ben Chilwell, but I think that kind of speaks to the character of him, at least, or his professionalism, I would say. But yeah, and then he comes on, and that, to me, is the most notable thing that happened all weekend. And then, of course, Everton wins it in the 80th minute. And that's kind of all she wrote. Yeah, sorry, these games didn't really move me this weekend. Another one that I'll add in just because, another one that kind of, I don't think you would have expected the scoreline, was Brighton 3-0 over Chelsea. I did not expect Chelsea to win this game. I was at least hoping for like a little bit more of a fight. But yeah, it was kind of embarrassing on Chelsea's part. And yeah, you're probably going to hear another Chelsea rant this episode. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I mean, kind of, Brighton just ran wild. And Brighton should not be a team that's running wild. They just lost 7-0 to Nottingham Forest, 2 weeks ago? And now Chelsea's lost to them twice in the space of 1 week, both in the FA Cup and then in the Prem. So they say, Maresca says that he rested some players in the FA Cup game to prepare for the Premier League game. Worked out well, I'd say. But yeah, we'll kind of move on from match of the weekend. Like I said, apologies. None of them really moved me all that much, but maybe you feel differently, and that's great. That's football, right? Everybody has a different opinion. But yeah, this weekend was just kind of a weekend. Like, yeah, it happened. Picked a great weekend to return, huh? Biggest winners of the weekend. If there's a biggest winners, Liverpool's most likely going to be in it because they seem to keep on winning. Whilst Wolves, I don't think were terrible, Liverpool still does enough, as they have all season, to grind out these results. They grinded out this result against Wolves. They go up 2-0. Luis Diaz and Mohamed Salah get their goals, and then Wolves kind of mount a little bit of a comeback in the second half. A lot of shots, a lot of possession, a lot of chances being created. They do get a goal through who else but Cunha, who's been great for them this season. Without him, they probably would be bottom of the Southampton still exists. They'd probably be they'd probably be 19th in the table. Right now they're 17th. So there would be a little bit of a difference. But yeah, no, he's been unreal this season. But yeah, Liverpool just always grinding out the results. Alisson came up big a couple of times. Defense, Virgil van Dijk came up big a few times, and this is off the back of that rescheduled game between them and Everton at Goodison midweek. They finally made up for that game that was postponed all the way back. Was it like October, November, something like that? And they finally made up for it. So they needed to win here after drawing that one, and they do get the result. As I've kind of said multiple times, they haven't looked amazing. They really haven't. But they keep grinding out results. And it is impressive. Like, it is really impressive. They just know how to win. They go out there, get the job done, and then go out for the next one and do the same. It's honestly like quite impressive when you think about it. But yeah, so although Wolves put up a pretty big fight, you got to give it to Liverpool here as they stay top of the table. Another big winner is the guys trying to hunt down Liverpool, and it's Arsenal. I mean, they beat Leicester, which was expected, but still, you can only beat what's in front of you, and they do. I mean, Leicester didn't make it easy for them. It took Arsenal to the 81st minute to break them down. Moreno gets 2 goals. He gets a brace. So after coming on in the 69th minute. So talk about an impact sub, I would say. Arsenal has a lot of injury woes. I mean, as does every team, but certain teams get coddled by the media, I find, when it comes to injuries. Arsenal being one of them. But yeah, every team's struggling with injuries, but still, that doesn't make this any less impressive because they're starting an out-of-form Raheem Sterling, who has yet to find his feet with Arsenal during this loan period. Leandro Trossard, and then a 17-year-old Ethan Narwari. I'm sorry, I keep on stumbling over. I've recorded this bit, by the way, like 6 times. I keep stumbling over his name. But yes, him. They still, I mean, Ethan Narwari did very well. He grabbed an assist, I believe, on one of the goals he did. It was the first goal he grabbed the assist on. So yeah, definitely. I mean, it shows that Arsenal aren't going anywhere until the end of the season. And who knows, all it takes is a couple Liverpool slip-ups and Arsenal are in pole position. So they're the only ones at the moment that really look like they could win the league, not named Liverpool. I think it's between those two now. You could, I think, confidently say that. So we'll see how the rest of the season plays out for both of these teams, as they both did pick up pretty big wins over competition that you would expect them to beat, but still, you can only beat what's in front of you. And I mean, hey, ask Chelsea. They don't beat competition they should beat. Another big winner, Manchester City, kind of already discussed their match. But yeah, tough opponent in Newcastle, but City just kind of went out there and did what City does. Like, yes, as I said earlier, still probably need the rebuild, but they're still got quality. Like, they still have quality. And now they've brought in a couple young guys who could really revamp that side. So it could be over for everyone next year. Another big winner. I'm looking at you, Tottenham. I've spent so much of the season dogging on Tottenham. I have to give them credit where it's due. They do beat Manchester United. Yes, nearly slipped a couple of times, but a 13th minute goal from James Maddison proved to be the only thing that separated the two teams on the day. I mean, it was basically a battle of the two struggling top sixers at the moment. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you want to put in Chelsea in this, and we can have like all three of them play the same match, and we get like the first ever triple threat for the Premier League. You could do that, and you could say that those are the struggling of the big six, because yeah, that's what it looks like. But the two teams that are in the bottom half of the table of the big six, Manchester United now fall to 15th as Tottenham rise up to mighty old 12th. So obviously, I think in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really mean a whole ton, but just figure I give Tottenham a little bit of respect, as I've kind of absolutely ragged on them all season. We'll move away from the winners of the weekend, move into the underwhelmers of the weekend. Tottenham very close to underwhelmers. They know what that's like. They know what that's like on the Maple Footy Podcast. They've been a part of it a couple of times, but it's their opposition this time that is a part of the underwhelmers. What more can I really say about Manchester United? I feel like I've said that alone like probably 5 times throughout this season about Manchester United in the underwhelmers category of like, what more can be said? Like, they're not good. All due respect, they haven't been good. Amarin proving to be, I don't want to say over his head, but just kind of, he doesn't know what to do. And in all fairness, I don't think you could put anybody in there at the moment and they would know what to do. Give me like prime Jose, Alex Ferguson, Conte, Klopp, Guardiola. I don't think they know what to do. I think it's just a mess front to back. Top to bottom in that club, and they need, I've said this on the podcast before, I think they honestly just need to metaphorically blow it all up and just kind of restart. And obviously I don't think that will happen, but I think that that's kind of really the answer at this moment in time. But we'll kind of move away from United. We'll talk about Chelsea a little bit. I don't think I'll get as ranty and passionate about it as I did that one rant, just because I kind of saw this one coming. I really did. I didn't expect us to win this. I think our manager is proving to not have a winner's mentality. As I've said on the podcast before, I was always concerned about him coming in because he nearly blew a 30-point lead last year with Leicester City in the championship. And he obviously didn't, but he nearly did, which kind of shows that maybe he's not ready for this level. And then you have him saying certain things in the media like, oh, no, we never expected to be top 4 this year. That's a next year thing. Come on. It's Chelsea Football Club. The expectation is Champions League. They sacked Graham Potter, because they didn't think he'd get it. They sacked Pochettino because he didn't get it. But Enzo Maresca now comes in. They're like, oh, no, it's fine. You don't need to get it. Yeah, no, that makes sense. As I said last time I ranted about Chelsea, it's only a matter of time before guys like Enzo Fernandez, Cole Palmer, and Moises Caicedo all realize that they are far better than missing out on Champions League consistently before they end up putting in their transfer requests. And then at that point, you may as well have liquidated us, because what's the point? Sorry, just make myself laugh, because if you don't, you'll cry. Yeah, I mean, those are really the only 3 guys I look at that I'm like, yeah, they're proper quality, like could start on most to any team out there, in my opinion. I would love to put Reece James up there, but just injury woes, I can't put him up there. But quality of player, yes, he is up there. Just injury and availability wise, I can't in good faith put him up there. Everybody else is extremely wishy-washy, hot or cold. Even guys I'm a fan of like Jadon Sancho, that's about it. That's the only other guy I like on it. No, I'm kidding. I do like the Nicholas Jackson, Christopher Nkunku, even Enzo Fernandez himself is pretty wishy-washy. Marc Cucurella, I'm not his biggest fan, but he's been wishy-washy. Goalkeeper, still a massive concern. Center backs, huge concern. I mean, Levi Colwell, I think, is the most disappointing because he's Chelsea born and bred. And you have him laying on the ground, and this isn't the first time this happened with him this season, laying on the ground trying to get a foul as Brighton go score. You're a center back wearing number 6 that Thiago Silva just wore for the club. Last season you wore 26 that John Terry just wore. You know what those numbers mean to this club, and you know what that badge entails. And I just think it's a pathetic display, honestly, as a center back, as the starting center back for Chelsea Football Club, for you to sit and watch Brighton score as you try to get a foul. And this, like I said, this isn't the first time this happened this season. I believe he did against West Ham as well. It's poor. It's really poor. You can't do that, especially at this level. And I know that's the game. They all try to win the fouls. Yep. And when you don't, you get up and you move on. It's very irritating. Guys like Frank Lampard, John Terry, Petr Cech, Eden Hazard, Didier Drogba, list of Chelsea legends that goes on and on and on. They have got to be watching this just going, what has happened? And I think that's the kind of the sentiment with fans as well. Just, what has happened? Like, what's going on? What's the plan here? There isn't one. I'm beating a dead horse at this point. I'm going to move on just because what more can be said about Chelsea at the moment? I will say they had me hoping and dreaming at the start of the season when they started out really well. I never thought we were going to win the league, but it was looking promising. Like, almost guaranteed top 4 was looking real good. And now at this point, top 4 looks like a long shot. I know we're not out of it mathematically by any means, but I've seen this film before. And I didn't like the ending. Sorry, I'm not a Taylor Swift fan. That just came in my head. But no, I've seen this before. It's so predictable. We're not getting top 4 this year, especially with City finding form right at the right time. As I had been saying, Newcastle still up in there. Bournemouth still up in there. Forest still up in there. Liverpool and Arsenal are all but guaranteed for Champions League already next season. So yeah, it doesn't shock me. It won't shock me if we miss out on it. But finally, speaking of Forest, I'm going to put them in the underwhelmers as well, just because they lost to Fulham. Fulham, by the way, the only team this season to do the double over Nottingham Forest so far. Emile Smith-Rowe, you love to see it. I mean, of course, former Arsenal player. But yeah, I mean, he was hampered with injuries for the last, 2 years? And he has been having a very good season for Fulham. Gets a goal here. Chris Wood, another guy who's been having a good season, obviously, for Forest, gets another goal. And then Calvin Bassey scores the winner in the 62nd minute. And then from there, it's a pretty back and forth affair. But Fulham have done enough to get the win. So I think that's just concerning for Nottingham Forest because there's a lot of cracks kind of starting to be shown a little bit recently throughout the last couple of weeks. That's a loss here. And then, of course, that 5-0 loss to Bournemouth a little bit ago. And, I mean, there's a 7-0 sandwiched in the middle. So it's like 5-0 loss, 7-0 win, 2-1 loss. It's not. It's a strange sandwich, that one. But, yeah, I mean, I kind of like other teams in the top 4, like City, you don't really expect them to kind of be out of this title race at all. Not title race, top 4 race. But the cracks are showing, I think, and I think people are starting to figure them out just a little bit. We'll see if they can kind of hang on. They have a very good squad and a good manager. They've shown that they can get wins, as I have mentioned, the 7-0. So we'll kind of see how it all lands for them. But yeah, putting them in the underwhelmers here. Just so that it just wasn't basically Chelsea and kind of United. We're dragging you down with us, Forest. Best performance of the weekend, I mean, it has to go to Marmoush. Hat-trick. Kind of hard not to give it to him. If you haven't seen his hat-trick, by the way, it's actually a great hat-trick. Go and watch it. It's actually 3 very nice goals. First one, a nice little dink over. And then the second one was kind of not comparing him to Mbappe, but Mbappe-esque in the way that he kind of cut in and then that low shot into his left hand bottom corner. Very, very nice. Very Mbappe-esque. So yeah, definitely go watch his hat trick. Very good. Yeah, hard not to put a guy that gets a hat trick, especially in 14 minutes. Hard not to put him in the best performance. Another one I want to put in here is Minta from Brighton. Heartbreaker. But yeah, I mean, he was doing the bits defensively for Brighton. I mean, not that there was a whole ton of bits to do defensively against Chelsea on the day, but when he needed to, he did step up and, of course, gets 2 goals as kind of a right wing back on the day, at least. I know he's kind of more naturally a forward, but he was playing right wing back on the day. He stepped up, did very well. Hard not to give it to him, honestly. He was very impressive. So congratulations, buddy. Knowing Chelsea, they're coming in for you because we love shopping at Brighton. So, sorry, just a bad joke. Another one that I had to put in here, another guy that got a brace, Mikel Moreno. He only ended up playing about 20 minutes, but he made the most of his minutes. 2 goals, gets Arsenal the win. Kind of with the other guys, hard not to put him in here because he kind of single-handedly, I don't want to say single-handedly, but was a big contributor to Arsenal getting this win against a team that was proven to be a little bit tougher on the day than I think we would have expected. Let's move into moment of the weekend. We'll quickly get out the way. Marmoush hat trick. Yeah, we're going to give it to him. Another moment of the weekend, biasly, Ben Chilwell is playing football again. As I kind of said, big Ben Chilwell fan. Definitely got disrespected, done dirty by Enzo Maresca. He basically publicly humiliated. But he comes back. Obviously, probably wasn't a debut to remember as he does lose, but makes his debut nonetheless for Crystal Palace. And yeah, just good to see him back on the pitch. It's a shame to see him having sat out for about 6 months, not due to injury or nothing, just because they didn't want to use him. So it's good to see him at least getting some minutes in the tank, getting back to match level fitness kind of thing, and hopefully it'll be the first appearance of many for him this season. Another moment in the Brighton-Chelsea game, that touch, just the touch alone from Matoma, very nice for his goal. If you haven't seen it, once again, I implore you to go watch it. It was a phenomenal first touch, a great ball from his keeper. He brings it down so effortlessly and then takes it around Chalobah. Not a whole ton. I don't think Chalobah could have done there. Keeper potentially could have probably done a little bit better, but still, nonetheless, it's a great goal on Matoma's part, and hard not to mention it just because of how just class it was. And Matoma, by the way, good news for you. I'm sure Chelsea's coming in for you now too, because, as I said, Chelsea loves to shop at Brighton, so why not bring you in? You won't play because, God forbid that we give any guys a chance, but you'll be on the books at Chelsea for sure. As you can tell, a little bit bitter with my football club. Let's move into the relegation zone, talk about them a little bit. Of course, rooted to the bottom of the table, you'll never guess this, is Southampton still. As I say every week, just feel bad for their fans, honestly, because, yeah, it's just gotta suck, you know. They lose to Bournemouth 3-1, I believe the final score was. And then Leicester up above them in 19th after their loss against Arsenal. Credit to Leicester. I have not been impressed with them at all this season, but they did put up a better fight than I think most people would have thought against Arsenal. And then just above them on goal difference, Leicester and Ipswich are both tied on points, but Ipswich ahead on goal difference. A draw against Aston Villa. Liam Delap gets another goal on this season. He's had a very good season. And yeah, I mean, it could kind of go any way at this point. As I've said, I think it was last episode, it's going to be one of Wolves, Ipswich, and Leicester that stays up. The other two will be going down along with Southampton, as everybody else was really just pulled away from the relegation zone. Everton and Palace, after the way they started this season, not even a thought that they're going down. They both have 30 points at this point. The closest one, not named Wolves, Ipswich, or Leicester, is West Ham, and they are on 27 points compared to Wolves' 19. So, I think of the three here, Wolves are going to stay up, so that would mean that all three of the promoted teams are going to immediately go back down, which is a great shame. It would be very nice to see promoted teams kind of stay up, but, such is life, I suppose. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Wolves have, I think, more consistently shown that they are capable of pulling off an upset, or at least playing well, whereas Ipswich have shown that they can, but not consistently, and Leicester just have kind of shown that they don't really care to be even bothered to show up ever. And then, Southampton's Southampton. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. And I can't turn on Wolves after I've been saying that they're going to stay up all season. I would love to see a team like Ipswich stay up. I just don't see it happening at this point. They are only 2 points off of it, so still a lot of time as well. This is, 13 games now left in the season, so still a lot of time. But yeah, I think it'll be Wolves of the three. Moving into Europe, a lot of change. No, not really. Just kidding. It's still all the usual suspects. Aston Villa, kind of on the outside a little bit. You could see them getting Europa or Europa Conference League. As same with Fulham. Then you got Newcastle, Chelsea, Bournemouth, Manchester City, all fighting for that 4th place spot. The rest will be, once again, getting Europa or Conference League. Each of them kind of having varying results this weekend. Of course, Chelsea lost, Newcastle lost, Bournemouth won, City won, Forest lost. So it's all kind of touch and go at the moment, I would say. Flip a coin as to who could get that top 4. I think City's probably a safe pick. Then I think it's a toss of the coin. I really do. I think then you're looking at Forest, Chelsea, Newcastle, or Bournemouth to sneak into that 4th spot, and that's 4 teams vying for 1 spot. So yeah, there's going to be a couple disappointed fan bases come the end of the season. But yeah, kind of like I said for the relegation fighting sides, there's still a good few games left for anybody to turn their season around. Like Chelsea's going through a bad spell right now. Still not out of the race though. Bournemouth have been very good. Wolves, Nottingham Forest have been kind of in a stop-start spell recently. City have been on the up for the most part. So everybody's kind of hitting different parts of forms at this time of the season, as is always kind of expected with the Prem, right? So yeah, if I'm kind of going to predict kind of like how I did for the relegation zone, I think you're looking at Liverpool, Arsenal, City, top 3, and then I'll put Chelsea in there just solely out of blind loyalty to the club, not for anything that I've seen recently. But yeah, just for loyalty for the club. That's really it, honestly. But let's move away from top 4 as well. Let's talk about the title race. Arsenal sitting in 2nd, 7 points behind Liverpool. Their next couple matches are West Ham, Forest, Manchester United, and Chelsea. That takes them to mid-March before the international break. So, honestly, I think the toughest game there is probably Forest. West Ham could put up a fight. I think United, Arsenal's probably got the 3. Against us, depends on what Chelsea team shows up, really. For Liverpool, before the international break hits, they've got Villa, which is a tough game. Then the big one, Manchester City. Then Newcastle, Southampton, and then a League Cup final is their final game before the international break. So, kind of like Arsenal, not an easy run of games here. Villa will be tough. City will always be tough, and Newcastle will be tough. Southampton, you would expect Liverpool to probably win that. And then Newcastle in the Cup has no bearing on the league at all. So I think it's very interesting. I think the international break is coming at potentially a good time for some clubs, depending on how those next 3 to 4 games go for a lot of them. Like a Chelsea could really do with an international break right now. Like if it started this week, I think that would be perfect for them. Get the guys like reset. Now that it's 4 weeks away, it's not the best. Like, it could be good if they kind of stay hanging in there for the top 4 race, but that's flip a coin. But then, like, a team like Liverpool, I think it could, like Liverpool and Arsenal, if they build momentum, now putting an international break mid-March, I think that's really going to suck for them because they got that momentum going, and then boom, international break. A lot of players on both teams are international players, so they're going to get called up. Hope no injuries, of course. But yeah, I think it could be a very tricky time for those clubs. Like, if they build momentum in these next 3 to 4 games, if they don't, then it might be a good time for them to go on international break. But yeah, just obviously it's things that you have to deal with as a club and as a manager, as a team. But yeah, just kind of looking at that, you're going, oh man, that's a tough time to go, so time will tell. Sorry, sang that a little bit. Yeah, time will tell. Liverpool right now still looking like the team to beat, but 7 points, as we all know, 7 points across 13 more games. Yeah, that can dwindle really quickly. All it takes is literally 2 losses, and Arsenal's 1 point off of them. That's how quickly it could go. So obviously, as a Chelsea fan, I don't really want to see Arsenal win the league, so hopefully they don't. But yeah, I mean, they seem to be the 2 most consistent teams, both result-wise and play-wise at the moment. So yeah, I mean, it could be an interesting finish to the season, and we're in there too, somewhere in 6th right now. So, such is life, as I keep saying. But yeah, that will kind of bring a close to this episode of Maple Footy. It was fun to be back. I'm glad I got to talk about the Canadian boys. Speaking of the Canadian boys, of course, come mid-March when we do have the international break, Canada will be playing CONCACAF Nations League. You better believe we're covering that because, of course, we are. That's the semifinal and potential, knocking on all the wood, final. Hopefully we do get a trophy this year, preferably both, between the Gold Cup and the CONCACAF Nations League. But yes, figure I'll talk about that now since we're kind of talking about the international break just a few moments ago. So yes, we will be covering that. Of course we will. It's my favorite stuff to cover, so we're definitely covering that. I look forward to it. Of course, still a month away, month almost to the day, really, until March 16th, which is the last games played for the Premier League until the international break. So yeah, really looking forward to that. Looking forward to how the rest of the season pans out for all these teams, title race, relegation, Europe, all that fun stuff. So definitely keep checking up on us here at the Maple Footy Podcast. Very much excited for all the things coming up, very much so. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. It's up everywhere, so go check it out. If you are still listening on YouTube and you enjoy that, keep listening on YouTube. I don't blame you. It's a great podcast on great platforms, so go check it out on all the platforms. Absolutely. Hello, real quick, this is future editor Sam. Yeah, after we finished that episode, me and my sister set up new Maple Footy accounts everywhere. So it's at Maple Footy Pod if you would like to go and follow us there. Official Sam Little is no more. So yeah, the turnaround time was too short between me setting up the account and putting this episode up to do a new intro and outro. But yes, if you would like to find us on socials, at Maple Footy Pod, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, all that fun stuff. If you just want to follow me personally, I am Sam Little 44 everywhere. So yes, just thought I'd add this in. So next episode, there will be new intro and outro to shout out the new social. But for now, like I said, just a turnaround time. It wasn't enough time for me to produce something that I thought would be good enough for the podcast. So I decided to quickly hop on. But yes, next episode we'll have a new intro of me shouting out the real new socials. And yeah, so Maple Footy Pod and then Sam Little 44. if you would like to follow along on social media platforms. But yes, thank you so much. So thank you so much. I do appreciate you spending about 40 to 45 minutes with me. Thank you so much. And until next time, cheers, everyone.
And that was your Maple Footy Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates at Official Sam Little on Instagram, where I am most active. And until next time, live, laugh, little.